Well, I'm so excited to be here with everybody. And I have to tell you, I'm super excited about, this topic of becoming a client attraction queen. It's something that I've been experimenting with, playing with for years now. And I always love when I'm able to share this stuff that I've learned along the way with other women who are trying to make an impact, trying to reach more people, trying to amplify their voices in their businesses. And so I would actually love, I know both of the Jamies that are on the call. Hi, Sarah, but everybody else that's on the call, if you guys would drop into the chat, let me know, what is your business? And what's one thing that you're hoping to get out of this class today around client attraction, around connection and things like that? I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what the needs are here so that I can serve those today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about kind of like in-person connection. I'm going to be talking a lot about social media, specifically Instagram, because it is still a wonderful place for us to get that organic reach. And it's also a place that is confusing. I'm sure everybody here can agree. I mean, it's constantly changing. And so I'm always trying to keep a pulse on how that's changing so I can share it with others. So let's see, I'm going to drop into the chat here. If you guys will let me know what's your business and what's something that you're hoping to get out of the class today around client attraction. All right. I'm going to do a screen share while I kind of wait for all of that to come in. Let's see. You guys probably all know Jamie, one of the founders of NoCo Women in Business, real estate agent, marketing, all the things. Natalie, Juliet, Taryn, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping in, just letting us know what it is that you do so we can all get to know each other. Yes. Jamie has an amazing organization called Free to Be, personal growth studio for girls. Oh, Grit. Awesome. I'm so glad to put a face with the business finally. I've heard amazing things about what you guys are doing over there. Perfect. All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'll come back to the chat. I'm going to leave time open just so you guys know towards the end so that we can do some Q&A and also so we can do some hot seat coaching. So if there's, things that are coming up, questions, write them down. One of the other things that I say is remove any distractions that are maybe going to come up for you. Our attention is one of our most valuable currencies. So I'm very flattered that you guys are here giving your attention today, but multitasking's for suckers. Multitasking doesn't help anymore. So try to just be present to kind of what we're teaching today so you can get the most out of it. And then I always like to say note takers are money makers. So if there's notes that are coming through, things that you want to write down, make sure that you have a notebook on hand for that. I'm going to just make sure that I have my phone on Do Not Disturb. Okay. So becoming a client attraction queen, this is kind of how I see it. I see it as this place where you truly step into your power and your truth. And it's so magnetic that your dream clients flow to you with ease and effortlessness. You feel so free to be your authentic self. And this is honestly the biggest block for most of us when it comes to client attraction, is there's something holding us back from just letting the freak flag fly. Just being our authentic self and tuning into our voice, not looking outward externally, but going inward to find that voice. And so client attraction, I can tell you, I have been in multiple seasons over 15 plus years as an entrepreneur. And one of the things I just want to bring attention to is there are peaks and valleys in this entrepreneurial journey. It's going to go into a valley. You're going to feel like you're in a winter season. It's going to feel barren. Where are the clients? Why is it so slow? And you're always going to come back to that mountaintop again, where it just feels like you've got more business than maybe you can even handle. And so I just want to bring light to that because it's something that I feel sometimes gets missed. And we, in this world of social media, see a lot of people on the mountaintop all the time. And we don't realize that behind the scenes, they're having the valleys too. So You may be able to think back to a time though where it felt like, man, the clients were just flowing in. That was probably you standing in your client attraction queendom and not realizing that you were more responsible for that reality than you were creating, than you were giving yourself credit for. So that's number one. Before I get into sharing any strategies with you today, I always like to deep dive into mindset. Anybody who's been with me for trainings before knows this. So I want to talk about mindset around becoming this client attraction queen. Number one truth to take away: the quality of your presence will lead you to the quality of your connections. This is so important. I'm going to talk about this later on, but this is about embodiment. This is about kind of what Jamie was talking about at the beginning of the call, about presence, right? It's about being present and never looking outside of this person that's standing in front of you in this moment, never wishing that you're somewhere else. Even in those moments where maybe you're having a conversation with somebody and it's not flowing so well, there's always a lesson inside of that presence. Also, there are no shortcuts to connection that converts. And I know that social media would like you to believe that, right? There's so many pros out there telling you about tricks and hacks, and there's no hack for real connection that converts. And there's a lot of great news around that. I'm going to share that with you today. And the other thing I want to share is that slow and steady growth is actually the most fun way to grow. I want to give you a little bit more insight on this. Just recently, my business evolved into an agency side of things where we do full service, like brand management for people. Basically, we attracted, talking about client attraction, we attracted this client out of New York, a doctor who's blowing up right now on social media. He's got 750,000 followers. Like, his content's really educational and valuable, and it's blown up. I mean, I'm watching his email list grow. And here's what I've discovered: slow and steady is actually fun, because there's a lot of things that happen when your account grows to 750,000 people. Number one, you can't connect with all of those people. You don't have that genuine, authentic connection anymore. Number two, the trolls come out, right? There's people in this guy's comments every single day disagreeing, telling him he's a fraud. There's equally a lot of people who love him. But these are just a couple of the things that I've seen that I've even missed in my own pursuit of growth. You know, over the years, I think we sometimes forget, like, the season that we're in right now is building us for that next level of growth. I can tell you right now, after being on the back end of this man's Instagram, I could not handle 750,000 followers right now. Like, mentally, physically, there's just not enough hours in the day. So I want us to just keep in mind that mindset shift of really embracing whatever season of growth we're in. Now, I want to pour into you guys a little bit more, and I'm going to start talking kind of in the social media realm as well. But when it comes to mindset, I want you guys to remember businesses are still built one connection at a time. So don't get duped into this viral way of thinking. Last year, maybe even the year before, a lot of the content that we were seeing and consuming was about going viral and how important it was to go viral and go viral and go viral. But that's not how businesses are built. Businesses are built one connection at a time. And, you know, for those of you guys that don't know me, I started out with a brick and mortar salon back in 2008. I was not somebody that, I did come from the beauty world, but I came from Summit County and Evergreen. That's where my clients were. So I wasn't one of those people that had a full clientele and then went and opened a salon and immediately had a client base. I literally was starting from ground zero, where nobody in Fort Collins knew who I was. And it took making connections one person at a time, making them feel personal, like they were having a personal interaction with me, learning the details about them, making them feel something. And that's the number one thing with connection, is for us to understand that we have an opportunity when we interact, when we meet somebody new, to not necessarily flex our muscles and show them how much we know or how successful we are, but we have an opportunity to make them feel something. And that's what people remember. So don't expect viral growth as a norm, but instead see Instagram and social media and YouTube and TikTok and all of these places as a free platform for you to share your message and have it amplified without a lot of effort. It's just like that extra booster in reach. And so if you create consistency, familiarity, and if you're committed to the long game of marketing on any of these platforms, you're going to see returns. And you may not see those returns necessarily in the metrics, but the biggest returns and where it counts is in your bank account, right? I know a lot of people out there that have big followings on Instagram. You would think that they're raking in the money. They're not. And then I know people that have really, really small followings, but they are having 20, 50, 100,000 K months. So just keep in mind, it's not always what we see on the surface. And then don't tie your worth to vanity metrics like follower count. I want you guys to start seeing your community as a pool of human heartbeats to connect with. And when you start showing up to deliver content with that intention, then everything changes behind the scenes in your bank account. It's really, really, really about that intention. How you show up on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, social media, in-person rooms, like a NoCo Women in Business event, is a mirror of what you subconsciously believe about yourself. So let that sink in for a minute. We are fueled by a belief system that basically creates our actions. So it's important for you to be aware of how your thoughts and your beliefs dictate your actions when it comes to connection, networking, and promoting your business. And I'm sure a lot of you guys right now could maybe even think, before I move forward, maybe even you write down what's one belief that's following you into the rooms that you walk into. Common ones that I've heard and ones that I've felt in my past are things like, I'm not likable, or I'm not pretty enough, or smart enough, or funny enough, or interesting enough, or successful enough, right? Or interesting enough is one that comes up a lot, right? And again, if we shift it back to this understanding that it's about how we make other people feel that creates that authentic connection, then we'll understand we don't have to be interesting. We just have to be interested. So it is important in everything that I'm going to teach you guys today for you to understand what beliefs are at the root of your actions and the way you're showing up in your business. And what I recommend typically is, what are the top 3 beliefs that are showing up that are holding you back from growth right now in your leadership, in your business? You could even layer that over other aspects of your life. And so be aware of what those top 3 beliefs are, and then understand that you can actually rewire your brain to believe differently. A lot of our beliefs are created from experiences that we've had in the past, seeds that have been planted by other people, meta programming, our values. I mean, there's all these things that feed into the subconscious brain. And the best thing that we can do to rewire is to just be in awareness. Before I go on, I just want to jump into chat. Let's see. All right. Oh, good. It's great to see where everybody's from. And so let's see, Jamie, you get overwhelmed with social media as a consumer. Even so, I'm not on it, but I know it's critical to business. So how to love something that I feel really resistant to. Ooh, I like that. I think that we can talk about that before the end. Maybe we can do some hot seat coaching with you around that too. Okay, one of the concepts that I want to bring up, if you follow me on social media, you've seen me talk about this recently, and I spoke to Junior League over the weekend and I brought this concept to them. And this is something that I think is pretty important. Back when I started out in 2008 in business, I only knew one way of doing things, and that was the masculine. My masculine approach was very much tied to past conditioning and a belief system that's how I was going to survive in business. Now, in 2008, when I opened my brick and mortar salon, I was a subscriber to Forbes and Inc. and Entrepreneur Magazine. There were not a lot of examples of women in business in these magazines. And that was challenging. Anytime they would feature a woman, it usually wasn't the owner of a company, and it was a woman in like a power suit with glasses and kind of like embodying that masculine man energy, that bro energy. And so that's how I did business. And I had a lot of like valleys. I already spoke on valleys, but I had a lot of valleys in the beginning because of this approach. And I think it's important because I see a lot of people with in-person connection, with social media in the masculine, trying to push and make things work. So here's kind of a distinction between that masculine and feminine energy. When you're in the masculine, you're in that hustle, you're pushing, you're always doing. You're constantly chasing after like some sort of external outcome. You're typically in your head a lot. It's always about logic and like trying to logic everything, logic your way to results. And inside of that scope, naturally competition is going to be there, right? So then you've got the feminine side. The feminine is going to be more where you're in the flow and the pull, not the push. It's more about being and embodiment, and it's less about the doing and the to-do list. It's about feeling. It's about attraction. And obviously this is a core part of what I'm teaching today when we talk about being a client attraction queen. We're not talking about like client pushing or client chasing. We're talking about attraction, attracting them to you like a magnet. It's going to be more about being in your body. It's going to be about tapping into your intuition. And inside of that kind of, mixture is going to be collaboration. Collaboration opens tons of doors. So when we're in the masculine, what happens is, and here would be an example of being in the masculine. Maybe you put a post out on social media, and then the whole rest of the day, you're constantly checking. Has anybody commented? Has anybody liked it? Maybe you launched something, you're constantly checking the link. Check, right? That's going to be the masculine. So when we're in the masculine, what happens is it ultimately will deliver us to the door of burnout. We're going to find our businesses or our social media or networking to not be fun anymore. We're not going to be inspired. We're eventually not going to want to do it. Now, feminine is very beautiful, but if you get just in the feminine, one of the things that can happen is you'll get nothing done. I've experimented with this. Last summer, I had a very feminine couple of months in my business. And by the end of it, I was like, man, I got to sprinkle some masculine back in because I wasn't hitting deadlines. I wasn't getting things done. It just was a little bit too loosey-goosey. So when we are able to find our unique balance between the two, then we come to this place of like synergy and pleasure and ease. So I'm not going to use the word balance as like there's one way to do it. But right now, as I'm talking to you, I'd love for you to maybe even drop in the chat so I can know, where do you identify? Right now, do you feel like the pendulum swings a little bit heavier in the masculine side? Or do you feel like it swings a little bit more in the feminine side? Let me know in the chat because I kind of want to see where everybody is. But, oh good, Taryn, I'm glad that this is resonating with you. It's hard when I can't see your faces, by the way, and it looks like everybody's off screen. So I do want to give you guys 1000% permission to be seen here in this space, in this community, because that is part of community. I don't care if you've got a messy bun, a messy house. So we've got some masculine, some feminine. Yeah, Jamie, you hit burnout and masculine. Yep. And it is a little, yeah, see, the pendulum swings. And so it is about us finding a balance somewhere in between, right now. And also there's going to be seasons. Right now, I am in a very masculine season. I've got a lot of deadlines that are driving things behind the scenes in my business. And literally today, well, tomorrow marks the end of, like I told my husband last night, I can't keep operating at this frequency. It's not fun. And so next week is a new week for me. And that means I'm being very intentional about the things that I say yes to, the things that I say no to. Yeah, I think most of us have been conditioned, like you said, Taryn, for that masculine. That's what we've been taught. And we've been taught that if we're not burning out, then we're not working hard enough. We didn't earn the paycheck, right? So we're going to flip the script on that today. And I want everybody to get comfortable. And part of that is just being in that awareness. So I appreciate you guys having that conversation with me. One of the best ways that I could like convey this to you around masculine is this concept of HILA. Now, HILA stands for high intention, low attachment. So this could apply to the example that I used earlier of like, you're so excited about this post that you're going to put up, or maybe you just met somebody at a NoCo Women in Business event and you met somebody that you feel like, oh, this person could be my next business bestie, or I'm excited that I could maybe collaborate with this person, or they could potentially be a client. And so this is where we get to shift away from that masculine. So high intention means that you are going to follow through, but you're going to have a low attachment to the outcome. And a lot of this comes back to our worth and understanding that one client, one experience, one post doesn't make up our worth. It doesn't basically dictate our destiny, right? And so HILA is something I always love to teach to people, especially if you're in sales where you're out there selling to people. If we get into this energy of like high attachment or high intention and high attachment, then we're almost embodying this desperation energy of like, I have to sell this person. Everything rests on me making this person a client. And it's gonna burn you out more. It's gonna stress you out. It's gonna take away the joy. And so I always like to share this concept, HILA, and I'd highly recommend writing that down so that as you guys go out into the world and create content, have those in-person connections, do sales, you can always come back to this mantra of HILA, high intention, low attachment. I do not need to be attached to the outcome, because a no or a crickets post is just a redirect. It's just a redirect for something better that's coming that we can't see yet. So high intention, low attachment. So, oh gosh, have a little typo up here. So when we talk about in-person connection, I want to talk about that with you first. And the reason why is I often get questions from people, and I used to do a podcast episode every year about the marketing trends for the upcoming year. And last year, about midway through the year, when people were asking me, well, should I do this? Should I get on this platform? Should I do that? I just started telling people one of the best ways for you to grow your business right now is actually in-person connection. And I probably would not have given you that advice pre-pandemic. But what happened is we went into a pandemic and everybody ultimately ended up being forced inside, and it was fun for a while, right? We loved hanging out in our pajamas and our Lululemon leggings. And then we reached a point where we really started craving people again. And so that's where we're at. That's why I think when Jamie and Sarah starting NoCo Women in Business a year ago was like, and I know that they didn't do it on purpose, it was one of the smartest moves because it was at a time when people really were craving connection. So yes, social media is great, but in-person connection is where it's at. So when you're doing this, I want you to keep in mind these kind of like concepts. Go in with the mindset and energy that you're there to give and not to receive. It's so hard if you're living in that masculine where you're like, oh, I've got to meet those new leads. I've got to get those new connections. But truly, when you're able to flip the script and in your heart, just genuinely be like, I'm here to show my gifts. I'm here to share my gifts with the people in this room. You're going to attract 10 times what you would going in with the other mindset of like, what can I receive here tonight? How many clients can I get? Right. And then with that, go in with an intention. Okay. Your intention could be anything, but like your intention could be meet 3 new people. I'm just here to meet 3 new people tonight that I don't know. It could be, I'm here to maybe find somebody that would be great new support system in business, a new friend. But go in with an intention, and that you could break that down even further. Maybe for you struggle to go into rooms like this, and maybe it's just going into the room. I mean, I can tell you there was a time where that was me. There was a time where I had to drink a glass of champagne to be able to go to a networking event because I was so petrified of in-person connection. I thought that I wasn't successful enough or smart enough or all of those things, right? And then the other thing that I recommend is follow up after the event and just let the person know that it was cool to meet them. Keep that door open. I had a really interesting experience that I want to share with you guys, speaking about masculine. I was at an event in the last couple of weeks, and I saw somebody there that I knew. She was representing her business, and I went over to say hello, and we were talking, and she briefly introduced me to somebody who was on her team. And I said, hi, nice to meet you, and shook her hand, and then went back to kind of having this conversation. And while I was in the conversation, this person took my hand and shoved a business card in it, and then closed my hand. And it was so bizarre. It was such a bizarre experience. Now, I wasn't mad at her. I just was like, wow, this isn't like the way people do it anymore. You know, this is like a man's way. This is like this is just not how women do it, right? I wasn't mad at her. In my heart, I was like, oh, she's probably just new at networking and she doesn't understand that this is not the approach and the way to do it. But you'll feel it in your nervous system when you get into a room and something weird like that happens. And so we don't want to be the person giving in that way, you know, because in that moment, it very much felt to me like, here's my card, come see me, you know, and there wasn't an effort to like really have a conversation with me. So I wanted to share that. But one of the things that I always do if I meet somebody at an event who maybe I just want to circle back and give them like an affirmation, like, you're doing a great job. I saw that post that you put out. A lot of times I'll connect with people on social media. I'll just say, hey, like, you know, let's connect on social media. And then I'll follow up with a DM and just say, hey, it was so nice to meet you. I love chatting with you. Can we stay in touch? I always like asking. So I use this a lot in sales and in coaching. It's permission based. So I'm asking people, is it okay if I stay in touch with you? Right. And people, it's usually always a yes. I don't think anybody's ever said a no, but it just makes them feel valued when you give them that like courtesy of like, can we stay in touch? Right. Now, if you don't get a response, it's a pretty good indicator, like move on, you know? And I'm pretty sure I have something to say about that here in a minute about not taking that personal. But with in person, I always say, go in ready to stand out and be memorable. You know, how many of us go into a room? I think even Christina Monroe from Illume Collective, I think she might have even shared this with us at the last NoCo Women in Business event when she spoke. But going into the room and instead of trying to figure out like, ooh, what's everybody else wearing? What's the dress code? Like, I like to think now, how can I go in and stand out? So sometimes for me, and I know this sounds like silly, sometimes it's just like a bright red lipstick. Sometimes it's like some earrings that really stand out. Maybe it's a dress. Today, I wanted to wear a shirt that would stand out, right? So I'm always thinking, what can I wear? What kind of physical thing can I anchor onto my body that'll make it easier for people to remember me? And 9 times out of 10, when I wear that Clove and Hallow lip stain, it's like this beautiful red, I get tons of people that comment on it. And honestly, you guys, it's a wonderful conversation starter as well, right? You wear an outfit that stands out and it's a conversation starter. It's always going to work in your favor. So I love this quote from marketing guru Sally Hogshead. It's good to be better, but it's better to be different. And again, we use this quote a lot in the context of marketing, but you are your brand. Right? So think of it that way. It's good to be better. That's great. But better doesn't always stand out. Different stands out. So when we talk about this, and I have a couple clients that I'm working with, one right now out of Nashville, a chiropractor who is so busy in her business. She's hit a place where it's like, we got to buy some time back for her. But what she's missing right now is she's really missing that support squad. She doesn't have a group of women in her life to support her. And we all know we chose a path less traveled, right? As entrepreneurs, we chose the path less traveled. It's hard. Not everybody's built for this road, right? And so it means that we do need a support squad. And I say this from the bottom of my heart because I did entrepreneurship for 8 years without a support squad. And it was the loneliest, saddest 8 years of my life. Not only when I hit those valleys where I needed somebody to lift me up, but also in the peaks When I had like a new milestone in my business and I was so excited, and I look around and there's like nobody to really like celebrate it with that's going to understand it. Because let's be honest, like your friends from high school that chose a different path, or your parents that maybe don't understand why you chose this path, they're not going to celebrate with you the same way. They're not going to know how to lift you up. And so I cannot stress enough the importance of having that support squad and building it. So here's one of the ways that I just kind of coached one of my clients through. She's like, how do I do it? How do I start creating these relationships? So number one is to show your support through reviews, sharing, likes, referrals, maybe even purchases if you're in that situation. So first, we have to show support. We have to go first. Okay. So show them that you're interested, that you care about their business. This doesn't have to be everybody. I want to be very clear. I'm talking deep, not wide here. When it comes to building your support squad, deep, not wide. You won't be able to keep up with it otherwise. So who are the people in the community that really stand out to you? I like to call them expanders. Okay. People that expand you. You're looking at what they're doing and you're like, man, that's so inspiring, right? Who are those people? Maybe you make a list and now you kind of create a pathway to become a support squad for them first, right? So that's number one. Show your support. Reviews cost nothing. Sharing their content, sharing their business with people that you know, likes, referrals, purchases cost us something, but all those other things don't cost us anything. And then once you do that, once you kind of are doing that, then you can kind of go in and check in on them or send them words of encouragement. One of my goals this year was to reach out to 3 people a week. This is something that I did back in 2019 and 2020. I would actually try to have coffee dates with at least 3 people a month. And so, maybe you're not doing coffee dates, but it's real easy to send a text message or a DM to somebody and just say, hey, I just was thinking about you. The woman who bought my business, my salon back in 2019, I just was thinking about her a couple of weeks ago, and it was just on my heart to text her. We hadn't talked since November. And I just said, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. You are doing a fantastic job. And I know that you don't hear that enough. I know that you don't hear that enough in the position that you're in, but I just wanted to reach out to you today and tell you that you're doing great. Keep going. Right? I didn't hear back from her right away. That wasn't the point of the message. It really was on my heart to just reach out to her and send her some encouragement. Turns out she was sick. She needed that encouragement. It landed just when she needed it. And so just know that that is part of building your relational currency, your network currency. And there's a lot of value in that. I always love too how it returns back to me just when I needed it. Oh, like an angel, coming back and giving me that affirmation on a day where I really, really needed it. So then the next thing that you'll do after you've done these first 2 steps is invite them to lunch, coffee, happy hour, an event with you. Just invite them. Now, from there, hopefully it's reciprocated and they're like, yeah, let's do it. See where it goes from there. This is how those connections are built. This is how we go deep, not wide. And for me, it started years ago when I said yes to walking into a mastermind after this 8-year, hiatus of being on this lonely island by myself. I walk into a mastermind and 4 of the 7 best friends that I have in business were in that mastermind, and I could have closed myself off. But we said, hey, let's grab a coffee or let's grab a lunch. And then I started supporting their business and they supported my business. And today, like I travel with them when I have hard moments. We share it with each other when we have those milestones that the rest of the world wouldn't understand or think or may think that we're bragging. They don't. They get it. Right. And every woman should have this support. Now, the final thing I want to say about this is don't take a no personal. Years ago, probably 10 years ago, one of my business besties today came into my salon. I happened to do a service on her, and her name's Jennifer Little, for anybody in Fort Collins that knows Heyday, an amazing clothing boutique. And she said, hey, I'm a photographer and I'm trying to link up with other business owners and just take photos of them. And I was like, inside, I was like, that's a hard no. Like, I don't take good photos. That would be so awkward. I'm not very likable. I had all of these beliefs that fueled this no. And so I told her no ultimately, and it ended there. It was a dead end until many, many years later, when we were reconnected again. And I was finally able to tell her, when I said no to you, it had nothing to do with you and everything to do with me feeling like this awkward human being and like I wasn't worthy of being in your presence, which was so silly, especially now that I know her. So just know, if you get a no from somebody, it's not personal. It's not about you, and don't assign any blame or value to it. All right, now I want to get into like the nitty-gritty of networking, okay, and knowing your network, because this is a part that a lot of people don't understand. When you think about your network as a whole, whether it's your in-person network, your email list, your social media following, it's really important for you to understand that this is not just a one-dimensional group of people. This is a multi-dimensional group of human beings, of heartbeats. And it looks like this. So you've got within this network cold, warm, and hot connections. All right. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to lead people through a journey with us. And that journey looks like awareness, it looks like interest, and then ultimately moving them to commitment. We can't do that until we understand who is cold, who is warm, and who is hot. Now, you're going to hear people out there call them leads. Have you guys noticed? I don't call people leads. They're humans, right? So these are your cold, warm, and hot connections. I don't call them leads. So to effectively lead people through this timeline right here, you must understand that your community is a multidimensional group of people. And that means that your conversations and your content is going to need to be as well. And so that's what I want to walk you guys through, what that looks like. So when we talk about knowing your network, I already said this to you, but your community consists of 3 distinct segments of people. And once you know what those are, then you'll know exactly the type of conversations to have and the type of content to create for them. So there's cold, warm, and hot connections. I'm going to go through with you each one of these so you can start to identify. And as I do, maybe think about, okay, the connections that you have in person, maybe at like a book club or a regular event that you go to, or your social media, right? So here we go. Cold connections, when the goal with cold connections is for us to constantly grow this segment of our community. Sarah, I'm looking at you, like I know you know this so well, right? You could probably teach this. So your job is to be welcoming and friendly to these people that are coming into your life. So this is that first step. This is that awareness. Now, the type of content that we want to cater towards them is going to be shareable content. It's going to be personal stories and philosophies. It'll be lifestyle posts that create relatability and get their attention. And it's through a strong homepage on your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok that speaks to their aspirational identity. That's what's going to get their attention, them seeing something in you that they could possibly have. So shareable content is going to be quotes, things that universally people will really respond to, that people will be compelled to share out. Okay. Now, when it comes to conversations, this is going to be not only the conversations that you have in your DMs, but the conversations that you have in person at a networking event. So these conversations with people that you've just met, they just learned your name and who you are. These conversations should feel like a tap on a shoulder. It should feel like a heartfelt introduction and like you're genuinely interested in them. And that's hard because we've been taught to have conversations about, well, here's what I do and give the elevator pitch and here's my I help statement, right? But get interested in learning about them. And guess what? Sometimes you're going to get into a conversation with somebody else that doesn't understand this matrix. And they're going to do all the talking. And you may find from that conversation, this isn't my people, right? That's okay. That's okay for us to have those conversations too. So next is going to be those warm connections. And the goal is to nurture this segment of your community. Your job is to develop a relationship with them and to provide value in that relationship. So the type of content that you'll want to put out around this is going to be trainings, how-tos. This would be thought reversals, something that happens in your industry that you absolutely agree with. Natalie, in the fitness industry, I'm sure there's a lot of like philosophies being taught out there that make you cringe. right? So that would be some sort of thought reversal around what the norm, what the standard people in the industry think, but you're like, we don't believe that here at Grit, right? And then any story content that you put out, your stories is going to be where people that are already following you are really going to be engaged and on the edge of their seat. So story content that invites them to engage on a deeper level with you. This could be through polls. It could be through questions. I love quizzes. The reason why I love quizzes, and this is just a pro tip, quizzes get more engagement because people are nosy. We are nosy people, y'all. We want to know. And with a quiz, they get the answer, right? So I remember a couple years ago, my husband and I finally manifested our dream condo up in Steamboat. And I put a poll up that was like, where did we buy this place? And I put up all the different options. And I had like a record-breaking amount of people vote on this poll because they wanted to know where's the condo, right? And so it was a great way to boost engagement. Now, the smart thing to do is do a poll that's going to boost engagement in your stories, and then right after something promotional, because now you've got a lot of eyes on it, right? So that's your strategy. But content that gets people to engage on a deeper level, that's the type of content that's speaking to your warm connections, the people that are paying attention. Now, the conversations are going to be ones that create safety and intimacy. So that it opens up spaciousness for them to open up to you and share with you like something, that they may be dealing with. Taryn, when I think about like the insurance realm, I think about like probably like a horror story maybe that somebody had with a past insurance situation, and so just creating that spaciousness for them to feel safe enough to like share that with you ultimately can help lead them to that, conversion section when they become a hot connection. So this is where you also can start to understand their pain points, the things that they're struggling with, and do a little desire discovery. Dive a little bit deeper, find out what's their ultimate desire, when it comes to skincare or fitness or, their needs with their insurance. And then this is also the area where you can ask to share your info, right? So the situation, and I always like to say, you never want to ask a hot connection. You never want to ask a cold connection to do what only a hot connection or a warm connection would do. So perfect example, the business card situation I told you about where the girl shoved a business card in my hand. I was a cold connection to her. That was not the time, right? She needed to wait until I became a warm connection. And she could have actually moved me in that moment to a warm connection just by asking me maybe a little bit more about what I do. And then she could have said, hey, do you mind if I share my business card with you? Right? So just keep that in mind. The reason why I'm outlining this matrix is for you is so like, cold, warm, hot. We don't want to ask cold to do what a hot is going to do. All right. And then finally, you've got your hot connection. So the goal with this is to convert this segment of your community. Your job is to invite them into new opportunities with you. A lot of people get stuck on this part. They get stuck in the warm zone and they're scared to go in for the ask or offer support or offer their services. But at some point we do have to just like stand in our power and know that we have a solution for people. We have a solution to provide, and that's going to make their life better, right? So the type of content that really, really speaks to those hot connections is going to be social proof. So social proof could be before and afters, testimonials, reviews that you've gotten. That's what social proof is. It's proof that you know what you're talking about. These could be screenshots of DMs that, a client sent you saying, holy smokes, because of the advice that you gave me, or because of this, XYZ happened, right? So this is also where call to actions. So content that is straight up like, hey, I've got this offer right now. You can go get it right here. I understand that that's sales driven content. That's not going to speak to your cold connections. That's going to speak to these hot connections. And we want to put that type of content out there so that we can actually convert people over. You also could teach a part of your solution or your signature method. Maybe it's a method that you take people through inside of your business. Share that with people. Don't give it all away, but give them an idea of what that looks like to work with you. And then this is where you can create story content that invites them to work with you or connect with you for more info. So this could just be a straight call out of like, hey, like I have one spot open for this right now. If you're interested, DM me right away and we'll get a phone call set up, or whatever that funnel looks like for you. And then the conversations should feel like an invitation into your solution. It shouldn't feel pushy. But it should feel like, hey, I just want to open up this invite to you. If you want to check this out, I think that you'd be a good fit. And I think that we could probably really help you get the results that you mentioned that you wanted, right? It's as simple as that. And then handling any objections that they have. Maybe they have a price objection. Maybe they have a time objection. Maybe it's some other belief under the surface that they're, telling you about, but this is where you can handle those objections, and, kind of help them create that shift in their thinking. All right. Does anybody have any questions right now at this point? Yeah, Jamie, I like what you said here. The man's world. Happy International Women's Day to everybody on here as well, too. I didn't put any content out yesterday, but I am proud to be a woman. Okay, so no questions. If you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. So what I want to do, I'm going to go into this next section with you guys about basically kind of getting into social media, right? Now, there may be some of you right now that are resistant. I know, Jamie, you mentioned like you're kind of resistant to it right now, even using it for your business. And I just want to say this. I want to say it is so important to create this content library. Okay. And that's what I see social media as these days, is just a place for me to store some of my best content that will help people. There's a couple reasons why. A year from now, your future self is going to be thanking today you for doing this, for putting the effort into it, because it is going to help grow your business. It's going to help grow your brand awareness. It's going to amplify your voice, your mission, your message. There's no way around it. This does happen when you commit to building a content library. So I hope you guys see what I did there. I didn't say growing a big following. I didn't say getting 1 million likes. I didn't say going viral, right? We're going to shift away from those vanity metrics over to what we're really doing here. And that's building content that serves people. So having a content library builds you as an authority. It shows that you're an expert or a thought broker. And I've got, Jamie and Sarah, I've got NoCo Women in Business up here. Like, they're building this content library that's going to be something that people can binge. So it also works for you while you're sleeping. So I like to think of my Instagram homepage, my Instagram bio, the content that I put up. It's like an employee that's working for me while I'm sleeping. While I'm not on Instagram, it's working for me. So it means that I can put up a piece of content that's going to live on forever. And one of the beautiful things that you can do is think about, what are some of the top questions that you're getting right now from people that you feel like you're answering over and over and over again? Create a piece of content that answers that question, put it out there. So now the next time somebody says, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I've got a post right here. Let me tag you in it, or let me send it to you. All right. So that's a great way to get started with your content library. Building a content library also creates awareness of your business and your brand. So this is how new connections can find you. Again, while you're sleeping, this can happen. It amplifies your voice. Again, this employee of a homepage is connecting with people, and then those people are resharing content that resonates with them, or they're saving it so that they can come back and look at it and read through it again and again. And the beautiful thing when those things happen is it sends a ping to Instagram that your content's good. You're keeping people on the platform. And that's really what the algorithm is. There's all this talk about the algorithm. The algorithm is basically just keeping people on the platform for as long as possible, because Instagram's end game is to sell advertising. It's to sell stuff, right? But when we keep them on there, we're helping them in that mission. And it also builds an archive that you'll forever be able to repurpose from and redirect people to. So once you create it once, it's out there. I cannot tell you how many times I've taken a post that's done really well and then turned it into a podcast episode because it just resonated with people. It's really a great place for you to test and see what's resonating with people. And then you could turn it into a course or a class or a podcast or a speaker topic or an email or a blog post, right? So it's almost like your market research. A little bit later on, I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to repurpose one piece of content into 11 different types of content. Let me see how we're doing on time. Okay. So potent and profitable marketing at the root, you guys, is basically just repeating the same message over and 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 over again. I'm sure there's a few of you guys here that get kind of overwhelmed with marketing because you feel like you kind of have to like reinvent the wheel and, ooh, how can I do that? How can I say it like this? It is truly repeating the same message over and over again. And when we do that, that's when we gain top of mind awareness in the marketplace, right? So with Instagram, with TikTok, with all these different platforms, we're using different modalities like email, blogs, podcasting. Now we have multiple ways that we can repeat that message over and over. So I can tell you right now, like between memes, reels, educational reels, funny reels, lip syncing reels, carousel post, story slides, there's a bazillion ways that you can repeat a message over and over and over again, right? So we shouldn't ever run out of that variety. And then it also amplifies your voice and allows you to become an authority and be seen as an expert. All right. So let's talk about this connection journey one more time. I want to phrase it from the potential client's perspective, from that connections perspective. So when we are in the awareness cycle, our goal is to put something out there or have a conversation or wear an outfit that gains our awareness at a networking event that allows people to go in their head, wow, she is speaking about something that I'm interested in. I think I'm going to go engage in a deeper conversation, or I think I'll give her a follow, right? So that's what the awareness, I told you guys like the black and white of what it is, but this is what's happening in that connection's mind. It's about influencing an action to happen. And so we need to get them to that place where they say, wow, she's really speaking about something that I'm interested in. I'm going to follow along. And then when we get to that nurture phase, we ultimately want them to say in their head, wow, her content or what she said is speaking directly to me. I think I'm going to engage with her. Now, that thought process happens in a microsecond in somebody's head. And then it turns into an action of them reaching out and, posting something in the moment, right? And then the conversion part is really about them saying, I trust that she has a solution for me. I think I'll buy from her. I think I'll, find out more about this so I can purchase. I'm really interested in this. I'm interested in working with her or being in her, energy or in her solution, right? So that's the influence that we need to understand for that microsecond thought to happen and the connection journey to convert in that way. And I'm just going to share one additional thing on this. Sometimes we want the client connection journey to happen a lot quicker. And that's where HILA comes in, right? High intention, low attachment. I have women who have consumed my free content for years that have never become a client. And that's okay. I trust that they are smart and intelligent women that will make a decision on their own timeline. If they are meant to work with me in any capacity, I know that I don't need to have any attachment to that outcome. It's just in their court. So just keep in mind, we may have clients, and I've had this where somebody heard about me and within days they opted into like one of my signature programs, and then I've had situations where they followed me for years before they, your picture journey with me. So just keep in mind that we have to keep that fluid. It's not linear. And we can't compare client connection journeys with other client connection journeys. So now I kind of want to get into the nitty gritty of common messaging mistakes that I see happening a lot. And I just want to bring you're aware of them. So number one is not having a clear plan or a pathway for reaching new connections. So you end up talking about too many different topics, right? One of the best ways that you can navigate this is if we're talking about like your social media, your blog, your podcast, your emails, have three content pillars that you're going to talk about and you're going to stick to. For me, that is CEO mindset, the energetics of business growth, and strategies, right? So these are the things that I like to come back to, and I try to stay in those lanes so I don't confuse people. So if you haven't already done this, come up with what are three content pillars that you want to talk about, that you want to be known for, that you want to be part of like your legacy, if you will. And then another mistake that I see is trying to be clever and ultimately confusing people. There's a few different ways that we can do this. One, we can write copy that's at too high of a grade level. Like you actually want your copy to be on a pretty low grade level, so it's easy for people to read. And you almost want that copy to be delivered in the way that you speak or the way your ideal client would speak. Okay, so you don't want it to be like an essay or they're gonna tune out. Another way that I feel like people end up confusing is they will drop in different fonts, like in a caption. I've seen like italics and all these different things, and the eye ultimately moves away from that stuff. So just keep it clear, over clever, really straightforward, and it won't confuse people. I always say a confused mind always says no. And so that's why we want to just keep it clear for people. Another thing is spending so much time creating messaging that you end up burnt out or not able to handle the delivery. A couple ways that we can do this. One is getting caught in perfectionism, right? And spending way too much time trying to put content together. Or one of the other ways is overcomplicating it, overcomplicating it. Taking people on too many loops, and then you get to the point where it is time to deliver for that client and you've got nothing left in the gas tank. I had a couple launches early on with one of my programs that I retired, where I remember doing so many sales calls and doing so many like posts out into the world that by the time it came time to deliver, I needed like a few days to get myself together before I felt like I was really like ready to go. And then the other thing is never becoming an authority and being stuck in this inspirational friend zone. Okay. I call it the inspirational friend zone, but the inspirational zone, it's like the friend zone if we were talking about dating. So anyways, this is when people are always saying, oh, you're so inspirational. Oh, that's so inspirational. Oh, I love that. But you're not ever putting out content that's like educational, that really shows that you know what you're talking about. And usually there's a belief somewhere underneath there that's stopping you from really coming out and using your voice in that way. So again, you can go back to that belief system stuff that we talked about at the very beginning and dive a little bit deeper on that. So when we talk about the storyteller's advantage, this is straight from one of my programs that I used to teach. If you want to go beyond inspirational, then these are the things that you got to make sure you're doing. Okay. You got to focus on solving problems. That's what you're here to do. It's not about you and your Dear Diary moments. It's not even really about like if it's a business account, unless you're like a parenting coach or something like that, it's not really about your life and everything that you're doing. You can share that stuff in your stories because that's where the connections are that want to know more about that. But it's really about solving problems for your ideal client that's there with a problem. So it's not about you, it's about how you can help your ideal clients. When we focus on infotainment, then that usually is more engaging for people. So that's going to be content that's educational and entertaining and at the same time. And I want you guys to know I'm using entertaining loosely. I think last year we got into a really slippery slope where we were being forced to, by the algorithm and experts and what Instagram was doing, we were being forced to like lip sync everything. And it was taking us away from our authority. It was taking us away from being educational and really sharing our expertise with people. So if we can blend both together, that's really where the magic's at. And then your mood matters. So if you have this energy of like, oh, I have to post today, people are going to feel that, like they're going to feel it. The other thing is when I go back to 2018, Susan, 2017, Susan, Jamie Carden O'Brien, I'm pretty sure you were part of my world back then. When I go back to those early days, I was very monotone when I would come on and talk. And you know what? I just recently saw one of the videos and it was cringy, but I also was like, I love that girl. I love that she showed up and she did it anyways, you know? And as I've gone, I've refined it. So I may be talking to you like this here, just having a regular conversation, but when I go to get on Instagrams or Instagram or get on a video, I'm definitely going to take it up a notch a little bit more like this, right? Because I don't want it to be read as monotone and like I don't care. I'm also not going to be super over the top where it's fake. And then the other thing is to write content with the goal of influencing the reader to take action. So just know if you're putting time into trying to attract clients through content, then it is so incredibly important that you understand that at the end of the day, you are there to influence an action. You don't need to feel bad about that. I know I've seen a lot of like shaming around that. You don't need to feel bad about that. You're here to influence an action, and there is nothing wrong with that. All right, so let's talk about a couple copywriting mistakes, common copywriting mistakes, because as you know, with social media, with your blogs, with any of that visual stuff that you're going to put out there, your emails, you've got two components. You've got the visual component, but then you've got the copywriting, what people are going to read. So if you avoid these mishaps, then you'll be well on your way to a captivating community. So don't try to make too many points or not make a clear point. I see this a lot on social media. I've seen it in emails too. And what we have to understand is people have a very short attention span. Sally Hogshead, who I mentioned earlier, she says that they have the attention span of a goldfish, which is 6 seconds or less. Some would argue and say it's more like 3 seconds. When I owned my salon, we had a standing rule that somebody was to be greeted within 3 seconds of walking through the door, because we knew that that was going to imprint their memory of their experience with us and how much we cared about customer service and client services. The other mistake is not catching their attention in the headline. So that first piece of copy that you write, that is the most important part of the entire thing. If you have not created a captivating headline, they're not going to read the rest of it. Nothing else matters. I know that's devastating to hear because we all have too many characters, right, that we've put out there that nobody read, that we poured our heart and soul into. But it's the honest to God truth. You guys, this goes back to immutable marketing principles. This is why newspapers do it the way they do it. This is why those headlines are so like jaw-dropping, right? And then the other thing that I'll see often is that they're too safe with no firm positioning. So when we try to be too vanilla, when we try to like make everybody happy, then it creates bland content. People don't really know. It's just kind of like, Whereas, if you stand for something, then you give people a chance. You get two things, and you have to be okay with these. Number one is you're going to repel people. That's okay. You want those people out of there that don't align with you, and you're going to attract. So when you go bold, when you have a firm positioning and a firm stance, you're going to repel the people that aren't going to ever be your people, that you probably don't want to work with anyways, because you don't align, and you're going to attract more of the people that do. They're going to be like, hell yes, I love what she's saying right now. The other mistakes are focusing on speaking to family, friends, or peers that are not your ideal client. It took me a little time to step away from this, because how many of us probably have friends from high school in our community, right? They're following along, watching. This is why I ultimately created a designated account that was not a personal account. And some of those people still followed. And you know what? Years ago, I had one of my really good friends from high school say to me, I don't even know who you are anymore. And it's like, well, okay, I'm a lot of years out of high school, so I have changed a lot, but also it's because I wasn't creating content for her at the time. Now she's a business owner, and that's who I create my content for. So when we focus on like, what's Susie from high school going to think, or what's my Aunt Becky going to think, or whatever, it's going to influence the way we create content. So just cross those people out of your brain. And when you sit down to write content, think of your most ideal client. Think about that client that you've loved working with, that you have gotten great results for them. And if you could carbon copy them by 100 and just work with them, that's who you need to envision when you're creating that content. Now, I already told you guys, stay away from copy that's too dense or too complex because people won't read it. And then the other thing is stay away from content that doesn't have a common theme. When you go too far over the place, again, people stop seeing you as an authority and they don't really know like what it is that you do. Sometimes we see this. I've seen this in the past with people who maybe are in direct sales. I love direct sales, by the way. One of my revenue streams in my life is with a direct sales company. But you know, I've seen people in direct sales and they do direct sales for like a bunch of different things. And now all of a sudden it's confusing people. You know, is it wine? Is it beauty products? Is it collagen? Is it, you know, jewelry? Like, what is it? Right. And then the other big mistake is not having a call to action. What we all need to understand, and because we do it too, is we get in the scroll hole and that muscle memory is strong, right? We just keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. You guys, I've been guilty of seeing a post, reading it and being like, oh, damn, that just hit me right in the heart. That was so good. And then I kept scrolling. And then a few minutes later, I was like, wait, I don't think I commented or like liked it. Right. So we just get so in the consuming that we forget we need to be told what to do. Okay. So a call to action is going to be like tap here, double tap if you like it, leave a comment, yes or no, agree or disagree. We got to tell people what to do. Okay. And a lot of people miss that. So I told you what not to do. Now I'm going to break it down really, really simple. And I want to give you guys the anatomy of great copy. It's really simple. It's 4 things that you got to make sure that you include. And I think we can all agree, like the visuals and the video, like that stuff's usually the easier stuff for us to create, right? If you're not by nature, like a copywriter, and you don't necessarily identify as a writer, you may find this part really hard. And you may even find yourself not putting the content up, or, you know, just putting like an emoji and then it doesn't have any like depth to it. So here is going to be your anatomy of great copy. Okay. This is an old post of mine. So probably not the best, like, you know, example here, but this is an old post. It was an easy one for me to share. So number 1, you got to have that scroll stopping headline to catch their attention. So the visuals are going to stop their scroll. The headline is what's going to catch their attention and tell them whether they're going to read on. So my scroll stopping caption right here, you know, I just called it out. Are you sick of your own ish right now? You know what I'm talking about, right? So that's number 1, is scroll stopping caption. I think I have some other examples. Hopefully I can share with you. The next step, number 2, second ingredient, is to build intrigue. So you need to build intrigue with a couple of lines that will keep their attention. So in this particular instance, I did a call out so that they could relate to what I was talking to. I went on to say like exactly what my past dream client would do. Binge listen to every piece of free advice, but then you never take action. You're queen bee when it comes to consuming and getting excited about your big dreams, but then you lose your nerve and the dream gets tucked away on a dusty shelf. So I wanted them to be able to relate to this and be like, oh my gosh, it feels like she's talking to me right now. This is creepy, right? And this is the client that I was talking to a few years ago, that woman who, you know, had just started a business and found herself in perfectionism and procrastination, or, you know, just couldn't get started. Then the next step, the third ingredient, is to deliver your value bombs. So offer your solution and the message that you need them to take away from this piece of content. So keep it simple. And my recommendation is, if you can't fit it all the truth bombs, if you can't fit them all in one post, then make it a 2-part post. Do not, I repeat, do not continue in the comments. Okay. Nobody reads it. Nobody's going to read it. It's going to get lost. And that is a perfect opportunity for you to create a second piece of content. I have a woman that I follow. She has like a $60 million coaching business. I really look up to her. She's one of those expanders for me. She continues in the comments all the time. And even though I'm obsessed with her, I love her, I consume her content, I don't ever read in the comments. Time for that, so don't ever continue in the comments. But here's going to be your value bombs. You're telling people what they need to take away. You're telling them what they need to learn. There is a lot more to this post, but in the anatomy of great copy, this is what you need to know. Oh, here's the rest of the post. Yeah. So then finally, the fourth ingredient that you have to have is deliver a call to action so the reader knows exactly what step you want them to take next. So a couple examples: double tap if you agree, tag a friend that needs to hear this, swipe to read, DM the word yes. I love using this as an example because I want you to see call to actions don't always have to be salesy. It basically was swipe left so you can see the exact spot that I spent 8 weeks putting the finishing touches on my Dame MBA mentorship, right? The picture when they swiped was me literally sitting at a TV dinner table with laundry all around me. And it was no joke. My point was to show people, like, you can do things messy and it'll be a wild, smashing success. All right. Now I want to share with you guys 11 ways to repurpose content. And then what I want to do is wrap up and do some hot seat coaching for you guys. So 11 ways to repurpose content. Now you've already made the decision you're going to go all in. You're going to have this content library that you can use forever and ever and ever and repurpose, right? Here's how you can take this and repurpose it. And if I really wanted to, I could probably come up with like 15 ways. So number one, start with the social media post, right? Maybe this particular post, you're describing your ideal client's problem, what it's costing them, and one solution for how they can fix it. Give them something, give them a quick win, a takeaway. Then you can turn that piece of content into an email that goes out to your entire email list. Create maybe a thought reversal around that problem that you presented in your social media post. Use the same graphic that you used in your social media post. And then you can also link them to that social media post in case this email subscriber is not following you on Instagram. So now you've taken one piece and then you've expanded it into a thought reversal. Then you could create a blog post. So expand the problem and now offer 5 how-tos for fixing it, and then direct them maybe to another blog post that you have on a similar topic, or direct them to your Instagram or your Pinterest or whatever platform you're on. All right. Then you could take that piece of content that by now you have a chance to see that it's doing great. Maybe it's going viral, right? In terms of social media. Create a speaker topic around this content. And you could go pitch being a speaker on a podcast or doing a live on someone else's feed talking about this topic, right? Really simple. You've already seen that it's a post that's done well. Now create a speaker topic. Then create a masterclass. You could charge for it. You could offer it up to another business owner, one of your business besties, do a collaboration and offer this masterclass. It could be free or it could be paid. Then you could create a podcast. Now, these days, I do have a podcast. These days, you can create a podcast that's private. There is a way to create a private podcast that people pay to be a part of and get that information. So maybe you don't want to do all the Zooms and things like that, but you could create from this one post a topic and talk about it. Then you could create a reel that turns the topic into something polarizing or funny. As we all know, there's a million ways that you can do reels these days. It can be real footage of you. It could be a trending audio. It could be you lip syncing. It could be not you in it at all. It could be like almost like a mood board. There's so many ways that you could do this. Then you could create an IGTV tutorial. I don't think they technically call it IGTV anymore, but a long format video tutorial, right? Where you walk people through this. You could create a meme out of it. I love memes. I feel like memes might even be my love language. So create a meme or a shareable quote to turn it into another post. Memes and shareable quotes, you guys know who this is for if you were listening earlier, right? This is for your cold connections. This is to reach new audiences, people that aren't aware of you, because undoubtedly there's going to be people in your audience that are like, this is so good, and they're going to share it out. Pro tip really quick. After you post something, if you go to the 3 dots on the top of the post, you can see who has shared that post out. One of the things that I love to do is see who shared it out. And listen, you guys, sometimes there's content that I create, nobody shares it. No big whoop, right? But if somebody shared it, I like to go over to their stories and say thank you to them. That's one way that you can nurture a cold connection. So I click on the 3 dots, see reshares. I go and look and see, I go to their stories and just send them a DM and say, thank you so much for sharing it. I'm glad you loved it. And then finally, you could do an infographic. Create an infographic. Actually, this isn't the last one. Create an infographic of the problem and solution. I created an infographic that I dropped in here for you guys today, the masculine feminine. I turned that into an Instagram post this last week. There you go. Practicing what I preach. All right, finally, social proof. Did you receive a testimonial from someone on this very topic because you helped them? If you did, a review, a DM, anything, turn that into a post. It's proof that what you're teaching, your solution works, okay? And then finally, what if you turned it into a conversation? I finally had this thought when I was putting together the slideshow for you guys. I was like, whoa, you could actually turn this into a conversation. You could be at a networking event or be at a coffee date, and all of a sudden, maybe this topic comes up, or maybe you bring it up. Hey, what do you think about this? Right? Turn it into a conversation. If you have a piece of content that does well, then why not use that content as a conversation starter when you're in person? Hey, you know, I wanted to ask you about this. I recently posted about this topic, and this was the feedback I got. Kind of curious. What are your thoughts about it? Right? Now you've got a conversation starter as well. All right. This is the final thing that I want to say before I kind of kick it over and answer questions. Becoming a client attraction queen, you guys, is about embodiment and energy. That's really what it comes down to. So we started this by talking about the masculine versus the feminine. For us to become a client attraction queen, we have to be comfortable with embracing our feminine. We have to be comfortable with feeling with the energy that we put out into the world. So a couple questions that you can ask yourself to just kind of get you into thinking about this. And some of these things are things that I, think about every day before I go into the day. Who do I want to become? Who do I want to be today when I show up to teach this class? Who do I want to be when I show up in that room at the next NOCA Women in Business event? Who do I want to be when I go, to have a coffee date with a potential new best friend? And so what you can do is think about the character traits. So a question that I ask myself every day when I do my morning journaling is, who do I want to be today? Focused, confident, grounded, courageous, free, flexible, right? You get to decide what that is, and then it's up to you to embody that. That's when that decision takes place. That's when that anchoring in of that identity takes place. And then how do you want to lead when you're in your community? I think this is a lovely question for us to ask ourselves. And I've been really thinking a lot about leadership recently. And when I spoke for Junior League last week, that was the purpose of it, was about leadership. All of us are hoping to make an impact and influence people's lives through our businesses. That is leadership. And you all know probably leadership's not easy. Leadership means being your highest self. It means taking the high road. It means taking the first step when you don't know what the rest of the steps look like. So start to define, how do you want to lead when you're in this community? What do you want to be known for? Really start to get clarity and crystallize that vision for yourself. that's when we're able to show up in the embodiment and energy, when we really have clarity about what we want to be known for. And so if you're able to embody these attributes, then before you know it, you'll feel the flow of clients and opportunities and all of those beautiful things that we're all hoping to get in return, right? All right, I'm going to come off of screen share. And I want to help you guys with your businesses. All right. All right, let's see. So let's see. When marketing to a large audience, what is the best? Sarah, will you come off of mute and explain your question to me? And then if you guys have questions, put them in the chat.
So like when you're marketing to like a large audience for like an event or something, how do you, because for example, like a couple of weeks ago, I had a broker's open that I was trying to market to. I was trying to invite like my referral partners that refer me all the time, people that, you know, I kind of know, they send me a lead here and there, and then people that I'm trying to get their business to. So how would I market to them in like a mass amount without it being like mass and still like being intentional?
Well, I love this question for you specifically. By the way, Sarah, you're like the connection queen, I feel like. I think inside of NoCo Women in Business, we call her the life of the party. Like, you're just so good. You are a perfect example of the way you make people feel something when they're in your energy, right? I remember like meeting you for the first time and feeling that way. One idea that I just had that came through when you were talking that might make sense for you because you have so many connections is maybe like a text message type of like a mass text message, you know, like I'm trying to think, we use Community. There's other ones that I think maybe are free or like a low cost, but maybe your employer would cover that cost for you. Jamie, are you familiar? I know that there's one that's free or really low cost. No.
Okay.
Okay. But Sarah, that's my first thought. Cause I know you told me when you did that broker's open, you were just like
Yeah,
nonstop,
it was like
texting.
a lot of copy and paste, and there is an app that we have within. So I would have to, you know, subscribe to that or pay for it. But I just like, I have a really hard time because I do love to make people feel a certain way, or like I don't want it to feel like it's a copy and paste, even though it is. So like for me to invite 200 people, it's so time consuming. So I didn't know if there was like a better way, or, you know, in those instances, that's the only, like, if you've got to get it out to that many people, I mean, that's kind of what you've got to do.
Yeah. So the way I would segment that is, I think what I would do is I would maybe send a mass text or a mass email, and don't make it a templated email. Okay. That's one thing I've discovered. If it's a templated email, people feel like they're being sold to, you know? So maybe your warm and your hot connections are segmented off, and you direct message or you text message directly the people that are cold connections, so they get that like warm and fuzzy Sarah experience, right? So then that's going to be a smaller pool of people, I would imagine, that you're direct messaging, and it's going to cut that segmentation down a lot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like
you're
that.
Welcome. Jamie, did you come up with the name?
I did. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the texting app that we are using is called Simple Texting. I think it's a starting package of like $30 a month, $29 a month, something like that. There's a free trial, so you can go in and test it out. But I think it's helpful because it's very efficient. And like you said, Suze, with the right wording, I mean, yeah. I think that people know you so well, Sarah. I love the idea of dividing that, the cold and the hot connections. But I think that there's still a way, even with that mass email, to instill a little bit of you in that messaging.
And I think that probably brings up another question, maybe that's worth covering. And that is, how do you segment them? right? How do you know the difference between them? So one feature that you can use on Instagram, everybody's probably aware of it, because if you're like me, you have 5,000 posts saved, right? So you can save posts. You can create folders. So let's say you've got somebody who's like a cold connect or warm connection or a hot connection, and they've told you like, I'm so interested in like potentially working with you, or whatever that is. One thing that you can do is you can take and save one of their posts into a folder that you create that maybe says warm connections, hot connections, that type of thing. You could create one for cold connections. I used to do this. And so then you would just save their post in that folder. And then maybe once a week, you would go in and make sure that you're engaging with their content or checking in on them. So that would be one way to segment it on Instagram specifically. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What other questions do you guys have? Is there anything that I can help with in your business specifically? Things that have come up. Jamie, you had mentioned a question you had mentioned at the beginning about your hesitation with Instagram now. Free to be, Jamie. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, where you're at right now.
I think I just as a person am burned out on social media and have been for a while. So me personally, I don't follow many people, and on it, like, I love to see your kids. I love to see you on vacation, but then it's like, I check the people and that's about it. So then when I think about getting on and creating and engaging and doing all of these things that I 100% know I need to be doing, I always find something else to do. So there's that part of it that I just need to get over. But I think a big part of my resistance also is the population that I work with, not only at Free to Be, but and I'm a child and family therapist, where I do see, I'm not a hater, but I do see where social media is so harmful and where it really is causing a lot of kids not to know how to be in person. And that's a big part of Free to Be. And I had a coach who I love more than anything and respect so much. And at the same time, who had said to me at one point that my social media needed to always be presenting in a way where people feel like they're missing out. And that just that really did not help in this thing that I'm already feeling with social media of I would never want to intentionally do that, if that makes sense. And so, and too, like, there's so many issues that and also I did take screenshots of that. I'm not sure if there are notes, but where you were talking about copyright, because I'm super confident in what I do. Like, I'll be in session with somebody or I'm talking in person with the girls, and I know I've got good stuff. And I'll even think that would be like, oh, I need to remember that. That's something that I could write about that would be helpful. And then when it comes to me sitting at my laptop and actually trying to think about what to write, I'm like, I have no idea what to even say. So that I don't know if that's writer's block or what that is. But yeah, I think being able to, I like what you are saying with the connecting piece. And I know that takes time. I don't ever want it to be superficial. I never want people to feel like they're missing out. Of course I want them to be here. So am I answering your question?
Yeah. So to answer that, I got to tell you, Jamie, a lot of what you said resonated with me. And I could see in the field that you're in why that could feel like such a no to you, right? And I'm going to be honest and tell you that when I started out my coaching business in 2019, I used some of those same tactics. Agitate the pain point, right? and as I've come along, what I've realized is it's mean girl marketing. And so it's become a hard line. It's become a hard line for me, mainly because personally, FOMO is not an energy that I want to be in anymore. FOMO to me is scarcity, right? That means that I'm coming from a scarcity place in the way I'm showing up in the world. And I don't want to attract clients that are coming from a scarcity place. So I respect so much your stance on that. And I could not be more aligned with it. And so I think that it's false. I think that changing a lot out there. And so I think one way that you could shift it is just, number one is, ooh, it says my internet's unstable. Am I frozen?
You were choppy a little bit, but you're back. I can,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. One of the things that I want you guys to know is you get to do it however you want to do it. You taking somebody else's blueprint, and even parts of what I taught you today, if it isn't aligned for you, if it feels resistant for you to do it that way, please do not do it that way, because you won't get results that you love on the other side. So Jamie, I love this notion of you just kind of doing it your way. And honestly, as you were talking, I'm like, I feel like there's so much opportunity for you in the work that you do in the personal connection. You know, maybe the marketing for you looks more like being able to get into more schools or places where there's bigger groupings of people available there for you to talk to at one time, that type of thing. And I think that there is still value in that social media presence, but I think it is going to be about just putting out content that you're proud of, that you know is going to influence the world for the better. That's, you know, trusting that it's going to get into the Instagram feeds of the girls that need to hear those words, you know, trusting that it's going to land. And I think that's where that masculine feminine comes in, right? Like that's a very masculine approach of like, make people feel like they're missing out, you know, make them feel like they need to hurry up and make a decision, you know, and I think that things are changing and it is moving away from that. And you sound like a leader in that you're saying, no, I'm not gonna do it that way. So I think what the other thing that you mentioned was about when you sit down to write stuff. So one thing that you can do is just keep notes on your phone. You know, I have a section that's like content ideas that I just keep on my phone, and I try to give myself as much context as possible, because this crazy brain, there's any other crazy brain ones in here, you guys know you have a million ideas and then you go to read it and you're like, what was this idea about? This is like one of my crazy rants. So, you know, I try to give it context so that I know that when I actually want to sit down and write it, I can kind of remember what that thought was. And I think that's where having content pillars for you would just be helpful. You know, what's the ultimate outcome that you want from your account? For you, it may not actually be about client attraction. It may just be about like inspirational, like influence, you know, getting your message out to land, like I said, in the feeds of the right people. So I think that would be number one, is sitting down, what is the outcome that I want from it, you know, and then from there, just kind of dialing down into what those topics are, those content pillars. So hopefully that was helpful. But say no to mean girl marketing. Don't do it.
Hey, Sue, can I jump in on that conversation? Because you guys know me.
Oh yeah.
You guys know me super well, and you know that over the last, I want to say over the last month, I hit this place of burnout where I'm not posting content right now, and it actually feels so good. I'm in that place. Yeah. I think when we did your workshop back in November, you talked about doing like a cleanse of social media, and that's totally okay, but to set an end date. And when I did my cleanse, I didn't set an end date, and now I'm in that place of not making any content whatsoever. But what I am realizing, being in this other side of being the busy body, posting content as much as possible in every place. Like, I loved how you shared 11 different ways that you can repurpose content, because it really helps just, I mean, the global view of like, you're right, I could take this one idea and put it in all these places. And that's where I had been before. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm realizing I really should just pick one to start. That's like my primary the one that feels good. And maybe that's not Instagram, maybe that's email marketing. And that's actually where I'm leaning, is to really just loving on my email list, and people know that's where they're going to get the most valuable content from me. I guess, what's the question that I'm going for? So right now I'm in that place of looking for different ways. Like if it's not creating reels and content, obviously I know there's paid marketing. I could create several different ads that are running, funneling people into my email list. But I'm thinking of like, what other ways would you recommend doing that if it's not Instagram?
Well, that's such a good question. Well, I think speaking, I mean, as I started out today in person, I just finished holding the mic for, several different speaking things. And, but that can also be exhausting. So I think if we're just doing the speaking stuff, that can be challenging. So maybe it's getting really smart, Jamie, about how it is that you do show up to social media. Who could you maybe collaborate with, do a live with, where you can tap into their community and into their network and attract those people in. So I think like, that's what I always go back to, you guys, in business and just in business in general, is simple. Like, how can we just make it as simple as possible where you get the most bang for your buck in the time that you have available? And so I do want to add, remind me to come back to this, but I wanted to add this, something that you said, Jamie, and that was, you also don't have to go do all the things that the experts tell you to do, like post, engage in people's content 15 minutes before you post and 15 minutes after. I don't do that right now because truthfully, my business is so busy. I just don't have time for it. And I'm not going to burn myself out. I'm not going to run myself ragged trying to keep up with the recommendations that are fabricated by somebody else anyways. I'm going to do what feels good to me, right? So with you, Jamie, I think, or Jamie, Jamie, I think it's like, if you're going to put any content out, maybe you go back into like your past content now, since I know that like you hit that wall of burnout and it's a busy season for you, right? Go back to your past content that's done really well, repurpose it now. Now you because people aren't scrolling 36, 90, 60, 90 days back, most likely. So go back now. Now you're not having to recreate from the beginning. Go ahead and grab some of that content. And that's another reason why you will love yourself 6 months from now for creating the content library. I love it when I'm having a busy week and I'm like, I don't have anything to go out this week and I want to put something out. I don't post anymore just to post. But in those weeks where I'm like, I have something to say, but I don't want to create it, I just scroll way back and grab something. Maybe I change the words up, or maybe my thought on it has changed and I put that content out. Is that helpful?
It definitely is. And I think I'm in this place, including with the NoCo Women in Business Instagram and the content that we have going out there, just trying to figure out what's the most potent way that we can continue to love on this community. And we want to grow our email list. We want to be able to stay in touch with people that in that way. And I love that you said collaboration, because what I'm actually thinking is we could potentially even start a podcast. I mean, I'm sure there's several ladies in here that have amazing stories that you would be more than willing to share to our community that would then highlight your business. And that feels like such a potent way for us to create content that could then be repurposed. And let's just ask the ladies here with a nod of the head, how amazing would you feel to be highlighted on the NoCo Women in Business podcast, right? To have your business highlighted as a community member, like that seems like that would have a huge value and perk to it. It's like you said, we all have stories. There's stories in all of us to share. Would you guys, would anyone here be willing to do that? Would that be something that you think would be really cool if we started highlighting women around the community with their stories on a podcast? I think
it'd be fun. And you wouldn't even have to go into the cadence, having a podcast. I can tell you it does require consistency, but you wouldn't even have to go into it with a cadence of like, you're doing it once a week. It could be like twice a month,
Right.
or once a month you drop a new one, and then pick up steam from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have questions or things that I can help with in your business?
Natalie, I want you to talk. Natalie owns Grit, and I met Natalie, probably like a few months ago, and she is so amazing, and she's got such a great story, and Grit kind of fell into her life as well. She would never had dreamed about owning a gym or anything, but I feel like what she's doing is absolutely amazing. But I know that you showed up today, so I want you to ask some questions.
I don't know what questions to ask right now. I think I'm here just kind of figuring it all out. Kind of like Sarah said, it kind of fell into my lap. I was more of the financial support of a friend that did it. That was more of her dream. And then she just kind of bailed. So then I took it over. So I love it. I think it's absolutely amazing. Again, like you touched on, like that mean girl mentality of social media. I really want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
That's been where we've started going more towards, because I think fitness studios in general, they kind of have this rare inclusivity. I don't know how I want to say that, but you almost feel like when you walk in to some places, it's almost like a mean girl vibe, or
Yeah.
you don't feel like you belong. You don't know if you can do it, those kind of things. And we really want to portray like just everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter where you start from, that the workouts and the fitness world is for everybody. It's just to make yourself feel good. So we keep our studio pretty dark. So you just focus on yourself. And we just kind of, I don't know. I really just want to make everybody feel welcome, more or less.
Well, and I love that. And one of the things that I'll add, because I meant to say this to Jamie O'Brien, and that was, so if we move away from the mean girl marketing and we move away from this FOMO and this, because it is true. I mean, Robert Gialdini wrote a book called Influence. It's based on sales psychology, right? And one part of that is urgency and scarcity. So we do need to have some of that built into what we're doing. Otherwise, they'll talk themselves out of it and they'll be like, oh, I'll come back later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. They'll put it off. So that's why offers usually are really smart to have some sort of urgency or scarcity built into them, meaning like only a few spots available, or this price goes away at such and such date. So, but one of the things that we can do to stay away from baking this FOMO and this mean girl stuff in is, instead of making people feel like shit, I'm going to just use that word, about like their problems and where they're at right now. What if we held space for where they want to go? What if we were the one holding the space for the higher aspirational identity that they had for themselves? So yes, agitating the pain point is important because it gets people into thinking about, oh, this is me. They are talking to me, but we don't want to keep people there. We want to hold space for the aspirational identity. And so I want to create that distinction, because as you talk about the work that you're doing, Natalie, with Grit and building out what that brand and that reputation looks like, that's one way to do it. That's one distinction that'll be very clear. It's not about like, oh, you're here right now. It's like, oh, you're here right now, and we're so glad you're here, right? We love this version of you that's here, ready to grow to that next level. Yeah. Juliet, anything for you?
I am like so overwhelmed by all of the whole marketing and things like that. I am like a brand new little baby in the business world. I've been hiding behind the drapes of the operating room for 14 years. And last year I decided I'm going to do some training in medical aesthetics and just see where it takes me. And I'm still doing anesthesia, and I have this, and then my 2 kids. And so, I don't do any social media stuff, or I didn't really, it wasn't my thing. I like to look at people's kids and their dogs.
Yeah.
That's what I would use it for. And So like, yeah, and there are so many places to get your treatments done in Fort Collins that it's an overwhelming, I mean, and
Yeah.
so for me, it's just trying to like find like, where do I stand and how am I different than the other person across the street,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm like a little baby in this. I am so new.
Well, and I also want to bring attention to one other thing too, because I used to think like, okay, well, if you're a business owner, you should be running your own social media. But over the years, what I've discovered is like, we should not be staying in the areas that are not our zone of genius. So now it's one thing if you are like bootstrapping a brand new business and you don't have that additional funds to pay somebody to do this marketing for you. But what I want to do is set the stage for just like a permission slip that if you are in the place where, in my first brick and mortar business, I knew that trying to do my own bookkeeping and taxes was going to take me probably 10 times longer than what it would take for the accountant to do it for me. Right. So I had it figured out, like if I just do 4 extra Brazilian waxes a month in my salon, like 4 Brazilians, if I could whip out 4 extra ones, I've paid for this person and they've just saved me 10 hours of my time, right? Maybe more. So I do want to drop that little ping because you may be at a place where you're like, my superpower, my genius is not in doing the marketing. I could give that clarity to somebody and let them run with that vision. And if you are one of those entrepreneurs that's grown a business to a certain point, I'm working with a few people like this right now, like the woman out of Nashville, the chiropractor, she stalled out. Like she's not going to get to that 7-figure level if she doesn't release some things off of her plate. And that means, outsourcing some things. So, I do want to say that there is a time and a place to kind of be like, you know what? I don't enjoy this. It sucks the life out of me. It takes too much time. I'm going to hand it off to somebody else. And it's okay to do that too. And it's also okay for us to be a beginner and be in the beginning stages of figuring it out.
For sure. For me, it's been really weird to go from like expert in anesthesia back to a beginner again, and I'm like, this is really good for my brain. Like, this is good, so yeah.
So I would say one of your unfair advantages, this is what I like to call them, unfair advantages, in medical aesthetics would be what you just said, your expertise over X amount of years, 15 years, you said?
I've been doing anesthesia 14 years and I've been a nurse since 2005. Can't remember.
Yeah. So that's a lot of expertise. That component right there probably already sets you apart from maybe 50% of the people, maybe more.
Yeah. Who knows?
And I want to just add one thing, because you saying that just made my heart happy, because I love to help people and draw business, like awareness to their business. And when Suze was saying that earlier, like sometimes people don't know what you do because you're doing so many things. That's me, because I'm like, you should go to Grit. Grit is so amazing. Oh my gosh. Like if you're feeling bad about your body, like they have the lights down low, like, okay, well, I met this gal at, my NoCo Women in Business, and she's been in the medical field since 2005, but you should go to her. Let's support her.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest thing for you right now is to find your like community and like the women that you can connect with that will get your name out, because word of mouth is so powerful as well. Especially like within our community. And again, I don't even know how we did it, but just having women that come that we just love to support them and we want to get their name out as much as possible. So just hearing you say that, I will be your first person to
you're so sweet.
send business your way.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Julia, I want to shout you out too and say, I think you're doing an incredible job in putting yourself in the right rooms. Like, and actually, I think you had like the showstopper skirt, right? At the last event. See,
that's one of my favorites. I love that.
You're
skirt.
already doing
You'll
those
see it
things.
again.
Like, Yeah, but you did something that was memorable, right? So
Yeah.
keep doing those things. And here's what happens. I love this. I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but Jamie Cardinal O'Brien just said to you, hey, I met you
just
at the
saw
NOCO
that.
Women. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
remember,
like,
I
this
remember
is,
you too from September, because I was like, I want my daughter to go when she gets older to go
yes.
to your place. So.
And this is how community is built, right? It means not just showing up one time, it means showing up a few times. And now all of a sudden there's some familiar faces. And I'm so excited for the next NOCO Women in Business event because I get to just be an attendee, which is going to be really fun. And I'm just excited for all the faces that will be familiar faces that I'll actually get to have conversations with, you know, and that's what's happening for you, Juliet, as you continue to show up to the events, you know, event over event. It's like now you're a familiar face, you're standing out, right?
Like I said, I've been hiding behind the drapes in the operating room. All you
Yes.
could see was this of me for the
Yep.
last, you know, I was wearing masks before everybody else had to.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Trendsetter.
Yeah, right.
So I think, you know, when it comes to like, I think, you know, we wouldn't have enough time here for me to be like, okay, well, do step 1, do step 2, do step 3. But I think like right now, what you need to hear is there are options. If you decide like, hey, I actually don't feel like I do need to do this for my business. I can pay somebody else to do this. Or, you know what, it's okay for me to be a beginner. And that means I'm going to move a little bit slower in the beginning and I'm being built for that next level, right? Yeah. All right. Any
I
other
want to go to
questions?
Grit now too.
Yeah,
I
seriously.
do. I like want to check it out.
Do you want to go together? Because I haven't gotten yet.
I'll go. Yeah.
I just one of Natalie's friends keeps inviting me at 8:30 on Fridays. I have to take my kid to school on Fridays at 8:30. So I'm like, let's do 9:30.
Yeah.
So I'll message you and we'll connect something.
That'd be fun. Yeah, after spring break. Yeah. I'm like
I'm at the
I'm
9.
a 5 o'clocker workouter. So if you want to go then, no, I'm just kidding.
Come, we'll love to have you.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll go with you, Sarah.
Do you guys have any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Suze, I have a question. So like when you said write down 3 things that hold you back, like when you walk into a room, I always have the question like to myself that I always battle that, am I valuable enough? And if I'm too like, I find myself a lot just trying to be like everyone's friend instead of like letting them know what I do and like asking for the business. And I really struggle with that because deep down, I feel like I am valuable enough, but then I have that self-doubt talk that comes in. And then how do I not be that awkward girl that sticks the business card in someone's hand? Because I feel like I am a little bit awkward, but not being like too nice where no one knows what I do.
Well, I think that that's, again, understanding cold, warm, hot, right? So that example that I gave to you guys, and please know, I wasn't, obviously I didn't say where the event was because I didn't want to shame or make that person feel bad. It wasn't a NOCO Women in Business event. I'll just say that. So I think, again, it's just knowing, like, if you just met this person, unless they're saying, what do you do? Oh my gosh, I'm looking for somebody. Do you have a card with you? Unless they say that and say, can you give me a card? That's not the interaction where we want to do that exchange. And really the reason why is because most likely if we abstain from that, it's going to actually set us apart, right? And this is what we have preached inside of, or tried to impress inside of NOCO Women in Business is like, it's the human, it's the heartbeat first. The business is like another layer of us. The business is back here, and that will naturally come forward once we get to know each other as humans, right? Most of us are more apt to do business with businesses or people that we know, right? Anytime I go to buy something that I would buy from Amazon, I always think, do I know somebody locally that sells this that I could purchase it from? You know, before I go purchase it on Amazon, I want to make sure that I'm supporting somebody that I know or have met who offers that, right? So I think that that's number one. But number two, Sarah, the belief thing that you hit on is really important. And I'm sure Jamie, as a therapist, would have some great advice around this. I'm going to lean back on like my neuroscience, like NLP stuff, and just say, like, the beliefs at the root are the most important thing. It's the most important thing because it is literally what fuels our actions and creates our outcome and our reality. So one thing that I like to do if I have a belief coming up, for example, I know that I've shared this with you guys before. Last year, I had a couple week period where I had this belief that I was too old. I had already reached my peak. My prime had already passed, and that it was all downhill from here. And I didn't realize that it was a seed that had been planted that had started to bloom into a belief, and it was starting to affect how I was showing up in my business. And I finally one day was like, wait, where is this coming from? There's proof of Oprah, Sarah Blakely, all these people that, haven't even had their best days yet, probably, right, of impact. And what I started to trace it back to, and what you'll need to do, is go back to where did that belief begin? Because then we have to rewire it, from that point and understand. So for me in that moment, what I realized was I had started following a bunch of coaches that were younger than me. And all of a sudden that was influencing me. That was influencing just by visually seeing their content. I was like, oh, well, the reason why they're more successful than me, which is a load of BS, is because they're younger than me, right? And so I had to disrupt that and be like, whoa. And then I had to go unfollow and mute and pay attention to what I was consuming. But, beliefs can go really far back. I had one for a long time that I wasn't good at math because my parents always just used to say, Susan's just not good at math. And so the amount of effort that I put into my math classes from elementary up to college was zero, because I thought that was a truth. Like, oh, I'm just not good at math, so I'm good at these other things. Right. And so we have to go back to where that belief began so that we can unravel it and pitch it to the side. And Sarah, I know that you are doing incredible, like, self growth work right now between your journaling and your cold plunges. And I think everybody here would agree you bring so much value, and we all could tell you that, but unless you believe it, you'll still act from that place. So I think it comes down to the same way. And listen, I'm on day 4 of cold plunging, so I know the audacity that it takes to do a cold plunge. So the next time you're in a situation and you're like, this is like a warm connection, I need to give them my card. Think about your cold plunge and think about the cojones that you get in that moment to do your cold plunge, and stand in your worth and say, hey, here's my card. Or can I give you my card? Ask, can I give you my card? I'd love to stay in touch. I think that I probably have a solution that can help you for a future, home.
I will say, when you said that, it felt really good. I actually did that for the first time yesterday. I met with a real estate agent that he works with someone that I know. And I just asked him, I said, hey, I know you work with this person and he's absolutely amazing and great, but would you be okay if I shared some marketing ideas with you? And would you be okay if I invited you to some things that we do at Cross Country Mortgage? And just asking that, and he was, because what I would have never done is probably marketed or reached out to him again, because I never wanted to overstep, but asking for that permission. And he was so thrilled and was like, absolutely. And I love that you asked. Of course, that was so kind of you. So I feel like I just went another level up in his book, which was really cool, because I've never done that before. And it felt good to just ask for that permission and receiving it.
See, and then you're not pushing anything on anybody. And now what you just said, you just went from awareness to like interest. And now the next step would be conversion, right? And that may be 6 months from now. It may be a year from now, maybe 5 years from now. It could be a week from now, right? You never know. But if you have high intention, low attachment, you're always going to be cycling people into the funnel, right? It's beautiful the way it works. Yeah. All right.